Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans from a diehard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. Feel free to add as many qualifiers to that statement to make it true. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and of course, and most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. I remember the Barnes & Nobles on Westheimer and Voss before it was a gun store. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in Los Angeles, and now, well, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You start absent-mindedly calling it the 10 instead of I-10, and you start podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a diehard long-term fan of the Houston Astros. Here we aren't doom and gloom casual Houston fans, or worse, the national media haters and avoiders. We love our teams and root them on, but also try to discuss the ins and outs of them without too much homerism. The key word here, of course, is try. On today's episode, Paul's Picks is back for NFL. I believe it's week 11 already. Goodness. I mean, you've heard of Jimmy the Greek. Well, I'm Paulie the Geek, and I'm a... I was offended by my own writing there for a second. I was like, wait a second. I tricked myself into saying that. You know what? I attempt to pick the winners all season long as if it's a pigskin pick'em league, and you can kind of compare and contrast my picks with yours for the sake of comedy. Look, don't ever take my advice on anything. I'll just say that. I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. They're both Milford men. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to Arrested Development fans. And of course, a shout out to the subscribers on the Substack. Check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my mumbles here. We're recording this transmission in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla, the dog, is here with me, and longtime listeners of the pod know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's already gotten on mic. It's because it isn't sunny today. It's actually gloomy, and she's gloomy because she's been inside. But she's been on mic because she's got the hot takes on this podcast, okay? In a world of ridiculous sports podcasters, emotional reactions, hot takes, and dudes yelling that their opinions are facts, well, at least I'm trying to be honest that I'm ridiculous. I also try to take the long view. I try to remember that we've elected to be fans, and there are bigger dragons in this world to fight. I mean, why torture ourselves by letting these sports bros rile up our emotions? So we try to be reasonable here, to an extent. I'm still a trash-talking clown, and I get in my emotions like anybody else, and Carla is crying to remind you of that. At least I admit it off the top, Carla. I'm an entertainer. Okay, I'm a diehard fan. I'm a clown. So be warned. You're right, Carla. Let's get to it. G'day, mates. Let's get to Paul's picks. All right, folks, let's get to it. I already had to give Carla treats to try to quiet her down. Let's talk about NFL Week 11. Goodness. I'm feeling it, folks. I'm not going to lie. I am exhausted and it's been a tough couple of weeks, I'm not going to lie. But we're going to try to push past all of that. That probably will just mean that I'm going to be extra silly on this podcast or extra tangential. I apologize already. Carla's is worked up. But let's talk about tonight's game. I'm recording this on a Thursday. Carla, we're going to calm down, okay? We're recording this on a Thursday. The New York Jets are playing the New England Patriots in this game, and the Patriots The Patriots are favored by 13 points. The over-under is 43. And, I mentioned this almost every time, but it needs to be mentioned now more than ever. Just remember that sports gambling is highly addictive. We talk about the lines. We talk about the over-unders against the spreads. We talk about daily fantasy, and we do it in a light way. Just remember, it's dangerous, y'all. So this is for comedy. Don't ever make any decision based off of anything I say. That's just for any podcaster. Generally, probably a good rule of thumb, a good rule of hand, yeah, a good rule of fist. It just probably take advice from experts, not comedians. Folks, let's talk about this football game. Look, the Jets may have stunned us with a winning streak of 2. It's like counting von Count over here. One football win. Two football wins. Well, Jets fans might not be laughing much longer because call me a shark, because the Jets aren't going to be happy when they hear that I'm calling for an end to their winning streak. That's what all sports fans love: Sesame Street references, West Side Story jokes. Oh boy, this is going to be a weird one. Buckle in, folks. I really do think that the Jet streak is over here as they run into the Patriots, and I feel awful. I don't like feeling this confident about the Patriots and being like, oh, they won, moving on. It harkens back to a terrible time when the Patriots were good, and it felt like maybe that was in the past, but folks, this Patriots team is real. They're favored by almost 2 touchdowns here, and I honestly, as much as I like to be a hater on the Patriots here, I hate to think how solidly I believe in this Patriots 2.0 squad. I hate that they're back so soon, but here we are. Patriots winning the Thursday night football game. Moving on, Sunday, there's a game in España. Spanish game in Madrid. Madrid. Okay, folks, we're just going to move on. We got Washington at Miami in Spain. Miami's favored here by 2.5 points. The over-under is 47.5. Look, these 2, 3, and 7 teams are sent to Spain because watching this game means the viewer is already in Spain without the capital S. Look, folks, we got the jokes on this one. I just need Ed McMahon here. Carla is not a good Ed McMahon. She really doesn't laugh heartily at any of my jokes as much as she sits silently and stares through my soul. I saw the meme. I'm sure you've seen it too, that female dogs judge their owners more harshly and severely than male dogs do. And it's true. That's why she's a producer on the podcast. She's quality control. Folks, it's wild that I felt like last week I was saying the Dolphins could be dismantled. And now I'm saying the Dolphins are going to win this game. And this coach's job is saved, possibly. But while I'm saying that and already letting you know where I'm picking, who I'm picking, I should say, where I'm picking is Spain. Who I'm picking is Miami. I still don't trust either one of these teams, and I already don't buy that little narrative that the Miami Dolphins are coming back and their coach's job is being saved. I'm not even buying that completely because I could see the Commanders upsetting in this game. I'm staying away. Look, unless I have to pick this one, I'm not picking this one. But sadly, I am in a pick'em league, and I do have to. We'll look at my win-loss totals in a bit. But we're picking Miami in this game and moving on. Folks, let's talk about my team. The home team, the team you know and love. Hopefully your team too. Like if you're a non-Houston fan and you listen to this podcast, is it a hate? I don't know what your deal would be. But thank you for listening, I guess I should say, to this imaginary listener I've created in my head. But folks, these are our Texans, and I always talk a little bit about the Texans, a little bit more than, I should say, a little bit more than the other teams, So the Texans are playing the Tennessee Titans, this team, and folks, if you liked the Davis Mills comeback, then get ready for more of the same, because Davis Mills is set to return as quarterback as QB1. He's back as QB1 as C.J. Stroud is still out, sadly, due to concussion protocol. There are even some rumblings that C.J. may miss the Thursday night game next week in Week 12 against the Buffalo Bills, because of that's a Thursday night game, so that's going to be a short practice week. So there are even rumblings that Davis Mills could even return for another game in that Thursday night game if CJ's just not up to that short practice week. We're as frustrating as that can be, as much as you want quarterback with the talent of CJ Stroud on the field. Davis Mills is a very capable NFL backup, and against a team like the Tennessee Titans, you feel pretty good about him. You're like, yeah, I could see him game managing the Texans to a win. But against the Buffalo Bills, that feels a little more scary. But luckily, we don't have to talk about that this week. This week, we're cheering on Mills more than ever, as unfortunately the Texans' season still hangs on his next man up mentality. See what I did there? I really think Mills and his neck will both take this team to a win here against the Titans. Luckily for the Texans and their fans, this team is up against Tennessee at home, and the Titans are 1-8. I think these Jersey trolls, they are. It's sad. I do feel bad because, as much as we can troll the Titans fans and the organization, as much as there is bad blood between us, you do kind of feel bad for an organization that has just this terrible of a team and this terrible of a season that, sadly, the word that you would use to describe it would, be ass. And look, that's not my word. That's a quote from the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. If the Texans aren't healthy enough, or they can't prove that their offense isn't past its learning days, or perhaps they can't prove that the offensive line has consistency, it could be a pretty miserable game for Texans fans. The Texans still have to go to Tennessee, still have to show up, and still have to beat an NFL team. They can't just take it for granted as if they're going to win. However, because I feel Davis Mills is in there, I feel like they're taking it very seriously. They're going to come in with a really good game plan. Offensive coordinator Nick Caley really wants to show up for his job, show that he's able to play call in the NFL. It's okay, Carla. We need this offense badly. We need them to hold on to the ball, have a healthy dose of a balance of attack, from run to pass balance, and spreading the ball around the field to different players, and keeping the D rested. And that's kind of the key to success against the Titans. It's really, they need to have an impressive offensive showcase in this game on the field against the Titans. That's what we're calling for. I'm picking the Texans, but that's their keys to victory. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about the rest of the teams in NFL Week 11. Okay, Carla.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your irreverent host, Paul Salazar Jr. Carla, the dog, is here with me. She's being very vocal today. She is not happy about the rain. She can't stand the rain either, apparently, just like a famous R&B singer. Folks, let's talk football before I go too ridiculous here. Let's talk about Carolina at Atlanta. Atlanta is favored in this game by 3.5 points. The over-under is 42.5. Will this be a tie? I don't think so. This can't be one of the games that I jokingly call for a tie-in. Look, I wouldn't actually put that in the sleeper app. One, you can't do that. That's ridiculous. Are you a clown? You think that's real? Obviously, I wouldn't actually call for a tie, but I am saying that, it's hard to pick. It's kind of a coin toss, But I have no faith in Carolina, sadly, and I'm going to go with Atlanta to win this one at home. Moving on to the next game, we have Tampa Bay at Buffalo here. Buffalo is favored by 5.5 points. The over-under in this one's 48. And it really seems easy to pick the Bills and move on because Tampa Bay, but honestly, Tampa Bay deserves a bit more respect than that. Both of these 6-3 teams are searching to prove that they're real. And it might just be recency bias, but I do trust the Bills to pick this one up at home. But it makes me nervous. Still, somehow. But we're going with Buffalo. Moving on to the next game, we have Chicago at Minnesota. Minnesota's favored in this game by 3 points. The over-under is 48.5. And it's getting tense in Minnesota with the 4-5 record. And there's more and more questions surrounding the team. They're being surrounded by questions. I've been on the record of liking Minnesota. I like the coaching in Minnesota, and I've also been on the record of being skeptical of Chicago. But I'm feeling spicy. I'm feeling a little spicy right now. I feel like those narratives, at least in my head, are changing a little bit. I don't know about you. You could let me know what you think. But, I'm taking the dog here in Chicago. We're going with the underdog. They're both, while Minnesota's 4-5, what I'm trying to say is Chicago 6-3. And I'm still trying to get those W's. I'm trying to win that sleeper league. I'm trying to make up ground. I have a feeling. Just call me Will I Am because I have a feeling. The Bears. We're going with the Bears. Moving on. We have Green Bay at the New York Giants. The Giants are home dogs here, +7. Then we have 43.5 as the over-under. And look, Green Bay is reeling from a couple of losses here, and they're looking to get right against the Giants. And I think it'll be a bit of a spanking. I think this is exactly what the doctor ordered for Green Bay. And what you don't want to see as Giants fans. But we're going with Green Bay and moving on to the next game. This next game, we have Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is -5.5. The over-under is 49.5. And, the Bengals have bingled their season. They've bingled a lot of my picks this season. They've been bingling and jingling all over the place. I don't trust the Steelers too much more, to be honest, than I do the Bengals right now. I have trust in the Steelers organization. I like Mike Tomlin, but it's been some mixed results on the field. However, I do trust the Steelers more than I trust the Bengals. So we're going with Pittsburgh in this game. The next one we're looking at here is the LA Chargers at Jacksonville. The Jaguars had a tough loss last week that we have been bragging and boasting about on this podcast and in Houston. Shout out H-Town. It was a win that we all needed. But I feel like this Chargers-Jaguars game is going to be a spicy one. The Chargers are on a run, and the Jaguars are on the other end. They've been struggling to win. Their most recent win being an overtime W over the Raiders. Yikes, not something you should be bragging about. But, I do think the Texans and Houston fans, want the Jags to lose because we're in division rivals and we want to get to the playoffs. So obviously we're rooting for the Chargers. But I also think the Chargers are going to prove themselves to be contenders in this one. This is a statement game for the Chargers. And sadly, I think it will be a tough game for the Jaguars to win. I'm going with the Chargers in this one. Now we have Seattle at the LA Rams. And look, I feel like this is going to be a good one too. First place of the NFC West is at stake in this game. And after watching the Texans lose to both of these teams, I think this one will be a playoff preview. But I also think that Rams have the edge on talent and on coaching. So I'm going to go with them. But the Seahawks are a great team too. I just think that the Rams are more well-rounded and will be able to take this one here. Moving on to the next game, we have San Francisco 49ers at the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cardinals are home dogs plus 2.5. The over-under here is 48.5 as well. We're going to have to study this fall off of the Cardinals. The Cardinals just have a zero trust factor from me right now, so we're going to pick the 49ers and not overthink this one too much. The next game, speaking of not overthinking, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland's plus 7.5 in this game. 39.5 is the over-under. LOL, fam. Baltimore. Don't overthink it. Moving on. Next game is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos are home dogs here. Plus 4 at home. The over-under is 44.5. Do you disagree with the line? Or did you disagree with the Ravens call, Carla? Do you think the Browns are going to win that one, or do you think that the Broncos shouldn't be favored? She's looking off in the distance. Okay, I don't know. I guess she, not Broncos are favored. She's correcting me. Yeah, the Broncos are plus 4. I'm sorry. I'm just confused, Carla. Look. The NFC West has a good matchup here, so the AFC West is not going to be outdone. There's a potential playoff matchup in this game, too, and I don't know if the Broncos have the offense truly to beat the Chiefs, but I do really like the matchup. I think it's going to be a good game. We're going with Kansas City in this one. Moving on to the next game, we have Detroit at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is favored in this one, 2.5 by 2.5 points. The over-under is 46.5. And, while the Eagles are favored against Detroit, call me taboo. Call me Apple the App. Because I have a feeling. Ooh. Just call me Fergie, guys. Because, look, I hate to brag. No vocal warm-ups, no auto-tune. That's just all natural. I'm not even in the bathroom. I'm going to go with Detroit here and not sing too much. Boom, boom, pow. Okay, moving on. Monday night's game, we have, that's such a spicy pick for me to just be making that many jokes about. I do like the Lions, but that's going to be a tough one. We'll have to watch how I do on that Sunday night game there. Moving on to Monday night. I was too busy singing to be actually making points. It's a comedy show, folks. What'd I tell you? I didn't say you'd like it. I just said it's a comedy show. Monday night game, it's Dallas at the Raiders in Vegas. The Raiders are home dogs plus 3.5. The over-under is 50 here. And oof, Monday Night Football is a hate watch this week for most of us. I hate to have to go with Dallas, but I think I have to go with Dallas. But I hope the Raiders win. I'd even be okay taking a loss in the Pick'ems league, but yeah, that's a tough one. But I think the Cowboys are going to win that one. Let's look at the Sleeper League real quick to see how I've done this season so far. We're looking at my total win-loss record on the year. Remember, there was 1 week that I was a fool and I didn't set my morning picks. So instead, instead of just saying, hey, my record should be this, I'm actually owning my mistakes, okay? I'm not adding extra wins to my totals and padding it to sound good on the podcast. I'm being like, you know what, I made a mistake. I effed up. And I'm living with those losses. And it hurts because I'm 8th in my league. Oh, I feel like if I could have just had that week back and set my picks, I'd be doing so much better. But I'm 8th in my league, and we have 13 people in the league. I'm 8th. I have 86 wins and 63 losses. Let me know how you're doing in your league this season. I am still chasing my fiance. Sarah is tied for 3rd right now in the league with 10 more wins than I have. Oof. And if you're wondering, hey, how are you doing in fantasy? You boast about how you never missed the playoffs in fantasy. You've been talking about how this is just an abnormally bad season. Surely this is the week you turned it all around, Paul, right? Well, sadly, in the Sleeper League, in my Thunder Bears fantasy league that I play with all my theater friends, I'm getting my butt whooped, folks. Last week, I lost yet again by a small margin. I hate to be that fantasy guy. It's like, if you actually look at how many points my team scores, I just have some bad luck. Everybody's showing up against me. It is that. I'm 3-7, though. I'm 12th in the league. I have to win out to get to the playoffs, folks. And I'm trying everything. Look, my team isn't bad. I have Bijan Robinson, Woody Marks, Rashee Rice, T. Higgins. I have Jake Ferguson, the tight end for the Cowboys, David Montgomery, Keenan Allen, Zach Charbonnet. On the bench, I have Mark Andrews, Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and in injured reserve, I have Alvin Eckler. I tend to rotate my quarterback and kicker and defense. Right now, I have the Steelers for defense, Tyler Loop, the kicker from Baltimore, as my kicker. And right now, because this is how much I think the Cowboys' defense are just straight cheeks. I have Geno Smith starting right now as quarterback. Full disclosure, I did draft Kyler Murray. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why my season's gone sideways. But yeah, I feel like that's a pretty solid team. I've just been really unlucky. But still, 3-7 ain't gonna do it. It's put up or shut up time for me in my fantasy league, folks. I really have to win out. I'm projected right now to win this week against Brian Southern. Shout out to Brian. I hope I beat you. He's 5-5. But my goodness, it is a tough season for your boy in fantasy and in pick'ems. Definitely let me know how you're doing, folks. We're gonna take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're gonna talk about some Rockets. We're gonna talk about some Astros. We're gonna talk about some Cougs. We'll be right back.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm Space Cadet himself, Paul Salazar Jr., here with Carla, the dog, and we're back to talk about the Rockets. Folks, the Rockets beat the Wizards at the Wiz. They won 112-135 in a dominant game, and they are now 7-3 in their first 10 games on the season. Kevin Durant had 23 points, 7 of 16, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Alperen Sengun had 16 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. Amen Thompson, 18 points and 8 assists in this game. And Reed Shepherd is a big story, having a season-high 21 points off the bench, going 5 of 8 from three-point, 8 of 11 from the field. And he is looking to start cooking. We need the tax man to be cooking offensively. The Rockets desperately need that. Also, shout out to Tari Eason, who had 20 points and 6 rebounds off the bench. Look, this was supposed to be a dominant win. And it was a dominant win. We want Reed Shepherd to develop against bad teams. And he looked great against the Wizards. So this is, while a lot of people are just like, yawn, of course, they're supposed to win this one. Why didn't Sengun play better? Why didn't Durant play better? Why didn't everybody have triple doubles? Yeah, I know. We want them to crush the opponent every single time. But this was an all-around great. I'm turning into Elmer Fudd. Folks, I told you it's been a long week. I'm going crazy. I'm trying to stay positive here. I'm trying, I'll be honest. Let's peel it back a little bit. I personally, it's been a tough week. I'm feeling super depressed. But I have to get on this podcast and act like a clown. But it's who I am. I'm always acting like a clown. So it's not like woe is me. But I'm just being honest, folks. There's sometimes you're going through it and you're just negative. And sometimes you just lash out at things that you shouldn't be lashing out on, so I'm watching that behavior. And I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to be positive. We've elected to be sports fans. So why should I be overly negative that the Rockets won a game because it wasn't a certain way or because I wanted to see certain stats? They were wearing the Dunksternaut jerseys. It was a great game all around. I really was happy to see it. logged into, the internet, as the kids call it. No, I went online and you see people, and some of their takes get you riled up, whether you agree with them or you disagree with them. And I had to remind myself, hey, don't let these fools take your joy. You need your joy now more than ever. You're not feeling good. Don't let these fools take your joy. So if you're like me, I hope you're doing okay. Hope you're hanging in there. Hope sports and maybe even this podcast can give you a little joy. The Rockets are bringing me a lot of joy this season. They're looking really good, and they just look like they're continuing to improve and continuing to gel as a team. They're playing Portland tomorrow. This is recorded on a Thursday, so that's a Friday night game. Real quick notes on the Cougs. The Cougs, your number one AP ranked team, beat Oakland 45-78. They're now 3-0. Go Cougs! Hoping for another great season from the University of Houston men's basketball team. Porky Pig, Elmer Fudd. I'm doing all of them today. We'll just have to see when Daffy and Bugs show up. Folks, let's talk about your Astros real quick before we log off. We actually have a bunch of notes to talk about, but I won't take too much of your time because I've got to get going. As much as I love podcasting, I have a lot of stuff to do. Folks, I'm going to be really busy lately in this next couple of months. But don't worry, I will let you know when I need to take time off, when you'll have podcasts, I'll try to be transparent, but there might be less of me. There might not be 3 podcasts a week always happening, but let's try to touch base with your Houston Astros. The winner is here. But it's going to be a hot winner for sure for these Houston Astros. Hunter Brown was third in the AL Cy Young voting. The Astros are getting a PPI draft pick because of that. And I mentioned that in the previous podcast. I kind of oversimplified it as saying it's like a first round draft pick. Just to clarify, it's a compensatory pick that the teams that receive those picks get them after the first round, but before the second. So, oversimplification, but just for clarity's sake, I say I'm a comedian, but I'm not trying to intentionally confuse or baffle anybody. I do want to have some kind of accountability for what I say on this podcast. Moving on, Dana Brown was very, it was a winter meeting, so he was talking to a lot of reporters, talking to the media. A lot of things were said. One of the things mentioned was that, the Astros don't have interest in trading Isaac Paredes or Christian Walker. I know that some fans have been speculating, myself included, are the Astros going to be trade happy this offseason? But at least right now, at least the official line is they're keeping these guys. They also have been talking. There's been a lot of talks about who the Astros are going after, whether or not they're targeting Stephen Kwan, the outfielder from the Guardians. Whether they're targeting Michael King or Dylan Cease as starting pitchers, or even an old friend, JV, Justin Verlander. That's right. Let me know what you think of this, guys. Justin Verlander coming back, and not to be like an ace, but to kind of help shore up the back end of the starting rotation. And I think for the right price, that could be really good for the Astros, but like I said, that would have to be for the right price, and that would have to be JV taking on a new role with the Astros organization. And I think it'd be something he'd be into at this stage in his career, but it would be an adjustment. So it would be a conversation. I don't know. We'll have to see. Another thing that people have been speculating about is obviously if we're trading for people, who are we going to trade? And a lot of people are pointing to our overabundance of outfielders right now. Would they package, Jake Myers or Zach Cole to go away? Or, it seems like they, Dana Brown's pretty high on Cam Smith. I don't think he'd be traded, but I could see that potential. I don't know. How do you think the outfield shakes out going into next season? Right now, obviously, if they get Kwan, I think it will shake out pretty differently. But I think they might be standing pat unless they can get somebody of Kwan's caliber. We'll see though, because that would have to be a pretty big deal. With that being said, also, one of the things is Cam is going to have to compete this season. A lot of things have been, now the season is over. Are we slotting somebody in as a full-time starting position? Not necessarily, but I think that's good. I think we want Cam to keep competing. He is a competitor. He's shown flashes. He just had a long season. The guy was playing college baseball, and now is in a full MLB season. So it's going to take some getting used to that kind of a schedule and get your body conditioned to that. One of the things that Brown said that I thought stood out was that the Astros potentially were bringing players back sooner than expected, and that not being a good thing from last season, from all of the injury concerns that plagued the Astros all season long and plagued fans. So that was an interesting thing. Obviously, there's a new head athletic trainer with the Houston Astros, so we'll see if that means that there will be longer stints on the IL. There has been complaints from Astros fans that people have been on the IL too long. There's been complaints from Astros fans that have been on it too short. You can't make people happy, Dana. Keep people on the IL the right amount of time. Which, look, I'm being facetious. Obviously, that's the goal. I'm just saying you can't ever make everybody happy. We just want to keep those players healthy. Each injury is individualized experience, Before we get completely into science, the Astros have officially announced new hitting coaches and their new structure. Victor Rodriguez is the hitting coach. We mentioned him in previous podcasts as being a potential hire. And, oh my goodness, I practiced pronouncing this name. I did not write down my pronunciation guide, and I'm kicking myself right now. Longtime listeners of the podcast know that Mr. Mumbles over here mispronounces a lot of people's names, and I feel terrible about that. I do try to write pronunciation guides down now more to help me, but unfortunately, I did not do this here. Anthony Iopsy, I think. I'm so sorry. He's the new assistant hitting coach for the Houston Astros. I will write down how to pronounce that next time, and if he's ever on the show, he can butcher my name any way he wants. The Astros also, so he's the assistant hitting coach, so there is a little bit of a hierarchy here, and Dan Hennigan was promoted from within the organization to be the director of hitting / offensive coordinator for the Houston Astros. So the first two coaches were hired outside of the organization, and they're more of your traditional kind of Major League Baseball hitting coaches, if you will. And Dan Hennigan is more of your statistical analysis, sabermetrics, kind of new age kind of approach, more overarching kind of big ideas type guy than working with the players directly on an everyday basis, I think is kind of the way that cuts out. And obviously, as I know more information, I'll share that with you. If I'm wrong, I'll definitely come back on the podcast and eat those words. Remember, I'm a comedian. I'm reading and listening to everything just like you. And the other hire is Connor Huff, who is now an assistant general manager. And that's your Astros news, folks. And that's it. That's all, folks. There's your Bugs Bunny. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it. Smash all of those buttons for me, as the kids say. We are a small podcast and only go as far as our listenership takes us. We are supported by listeners like you. So please share with a Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to this podcast. Please reach out on social media. Let me know what you think. Let me know what starting pitcher you think the Astros are going to target in the offseason, if you think they're going to shake up their outfield for Stephen Kwan, or if you even like that idea. Let us know on social media at Space Cadet Sports, or you can call in at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports and leave me a voicemail. If it isn't too crazy, maybe I'll respond to it. Maybe even put it on the podcast with your permission. You could also let me know what you feel by leaving a comment on the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where 99% of what I do is not behind a paywall. You just subscribe to the blog. You get a lot of Astros podcasts and information and silly stuff throughout the season and off season for free. But if you would like to subscribe to the premium, I keep that at a low cost, and that's just to support paying for things for the podcast and for treats for Carla. This is a passion project, but it's time consuming. That's why I might have to take some time away from it for a little bit, So if you'd like to support the podcast, you could do that there. But if you'd like to support and you don't want to do a premium Substack subscription, if that's just too fancy for you, you get some merch. I have Don't Sleep on Houston basketball shirts, Carla, the dog hats, and H-Town Blue. That's available on my website, paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. And if you've made it this far, you obviously like my weirdo sensibility, and you can find me making weird jokes on social media. I make jokes, memes, art, podcasts, and so much more at paulsalazarjr, paulsalazarjr.net. Once again, where you can find my other Substack and all my other nonsense, if you're nasty. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.